there's a couple things that I think that the parents should look at before selecting an amateur boxing coach. Find out what their long-term goals are. Make sure they pass a background check. I think a lot of parents forget about that. And also, see how successful they are. You get a lot of amateur coaches out there who are tremendous on the amateur level, but for some reason can't take their amateurs to the next step. Make sure that you get coaches that are involved with your kids that, can do a little bit of everything. I see, one of the biggest things that I see and that I notice now is like a lot of these great amateur coaches, they kind of bail on the kids when they get, when they want to turn pro, and then they end up handing them off to someone else who doesn't really know the kid, who doesn't really have a vested interest emotionally. So, when you don't have an invested interest emotionally into a kid, I don't think you work as hard for the kid or for his future or for his, stability in the sport. So if you have a great amateur coach and he doesn't really have interest to work with your child on the pro level, then I would say start bringing in a pro coach to be a part of camp here and there, and ease him into that transition of a new coach. I think, like I said before, there's too many great amateur coaches who kind of have no interest or kind of bail on the kids when they get of age to turn pro. So that I think is a step back, because then they got to learn things all over again and get a new rhythm of the new coach. But coaches, you got to take this, you got to treat this almost like a business. I think there's a lot of coaches who are so used to saying, I do it for the community, and I'm not really making money on this and that. Those kind of things are those are things that you're supposed to say. Those things sound great in newspapers, but at the end of the day, listen, if you don't have a business mindset, you're going to take a kid who has nothing to a level to where he can make something. Bring in some business people, bring in those people to help you take that kid's financial life to another level. You know what I'm saying? I think, you could take a kid, you bring them all the way up to that point, and if you don't know anything about business, you can have that kid sign a shitty deal, and the rest of his life, he's going to be paying that shitty deal off. So, I think I don't really like when coaches say, I do this to help out the community and the kids. Listen, you're not helping the kid out if you have him sign a shitty deal. So remember that, all that stuff that all this stuff that coaches say, I'm here to help the kids, I'm like a father figure, this and that. If you're telling people you're like the father figure, chances are you're not the father figure. If the kid's saying that, he's looking to you for real advice. And if you don't have the real advice, there's nothing wrong with that. Just bring in the people who know, who can provide that real advice. And I think that is the thing. Like, those scenarios are the reason why, these great amateurs sign these shitty deals. And if you're not progressing as a sport, as a coach, as an amateur pro, then what's the point? The other thing too is, like, I think, you see a lot of these big name coaches, taking over the careers of these great amateurs, right? And that happens all the time. I think a lot of young kids want to associate themselves with a big name trainer. And that's fine and that's great and everything, but you got to remember, those big name trainers have stable of guys who could be as good as you or better than you, and I think and those guys are going to have priority over you. So sometimes sticking with your amateur coach and your amateur trainers and bettering them for the people behind you is a better play. And I think we have to use words like we and us and better your stable mates. Instead of, I'm going to go sign with the next big trainer and I'm going to be working with this and that. Bring your amateur trainers with you. I would never leave your amateur trainer. They brought you to that point. Show the respect and show the dedication to not only your old coaches, but also the stable mates behind you, like the other amateurs in your circle and those other amateurs that prepared you for those big fights and got you to that level. If you think about it, how many times has Freddie Roach brought someone, from, I'm talking about now, not back in the day, I'm talking about now, right? So, like, has Freddie Roach brought a 10-year-old to a world title in the last 10 years? I would say probably not, because he doesn't have to anymore, right? But, you know, and that goes for every trainer, every big name trainer. I'm not just picking on Freddie. I'm just saying, like, you know, I think you have to remember to make sure your whole team evolves with you. And you know, and if they didn't evolve with you and you had no intentions of bringing them in the first place, then shame on you. I think, you know, timing is really important in a fighter's career, whether it's amateur, whether it's professional, whether it's promotional. And what do I mean by timing? I think what I'm trying to say is, you know, sometimes turning pro at the right time, that is one thing. You know, taking a fight at the right time, it's another thing. Taking a break when you need to is another thing. So, like, knowing the timing of your fighters is so important. You know, turning a fighter pro too soon, obviously, it doesn't mean they're over. It doesn't mean they're done. It just means slow it down, work on the timing of their careers, and pick the right fights and progress them, you know, accordingly. I think, you know, there's a couple fighters, even Chicago and not Chicago, where you see they take fights too soon. You know, two or three fights too early. If they would have waited 2 or 3 fights more, they would have probably, instead of getting a draw, they would have won. Instead of losing a close decision, they would have got a draw. So I think having good timing is very important, and working on knowing when to see an opportunity and capitalizing on it. That could be the difference in the world. I mean, if you look for the opportunities and pay attention, they're there, you know. And I think, like, you should, every coach and especially fighters, because, you know, I can pull an amateur out of my gym and I'm like, hey, name 5 fighters at the one weight class below you, at your weight class, and one class above you. They probably can name 2. You know, and I'm looking, you know, if you're gonna be a painter, you wanna know what the best paint is. If you're gonna be, you know, a construction worker, you wanna know what the best hammer is. Like, if you're gonna be a fighter, you know, you should know, you know, who the best is around you, and who the money man is, and who the biggest opportunity is, who's the weakest link, and you know, take advantage of those opportunities. You know, pay attention to the sport, pay attention to what's going on, find out why someone is successful, whether it's in your city, state, or whether it's, you know, Team Canelo or Team XYZ. I think paying attention to everyone around you and creating your own recipe by paying attention to what everyone does is huge, and it can make all the difference in the world in your career. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I feel like, listen to the podcast. I feel like I'm giving money away. I feel like I'm telling you guys what to look for. I think it's really important to pay attention to the contracts, to understand what the difference is between having a manager and not having a manager. What does the manager do? Is the manager putting up money? Is he not putting up money? You know, things like that. I mean, if you're going to be on the B side your whole career, you don't need a manager. So make sure you know, I can go into these topics, and I do go into these topics on my YouTube channel with Jessica McCaskill as a co-host. So make sure you guys subscribe to that. You know, we do talk about a lot of interesting stuff. If you haven't already, please like and share, and email me about things that you don't understand, and we'd love to talk about them. I think it's very, very important to just say these things out loud so that we can better the sport as a whole, you know. So make sure you do that. Make sure you pay attention to the podcast. And again, if there's something that you guys want to go over, let us know. We'll definitely put it on the show.